Hey yo, what is up guys, it's your boy Twa here. This will be a video on a new sneak peek. July is coming up and there's new balance patches coming around. So which one of these heroes will become the newest broken stuff, and will there actually be some nerfs? Let's check it out. Now first and foremost, there is something else that we need to address, and that is the piece of memory. So currently we are running a event dungeon which include Fallen Fray and Dark Castle. There has been previous heroes that have been introduced the same way, Zara being one, and I see Panzerone here as well. Now basically what it seems is that you can still do the story dungeons, do the special dungeons, and for normal stamina you can actually combat these things. However, it says you can obtain special kingship items by clearing the dungeon and presenting it through the gift of preset feature. You can obtain various rewards. Now this seems interesting, but if you look at this for a change, then it looks like fragments, it looks like EXP, and probably nothing else. So I'm not sure about the rewards. That still has to be unveiled, but part of what we can see is here's the Cycle of Fate and Panzerone. You can get yourself at least a unique treasure for starters, so that is pretty good. Now one thing that I really have to mention is that with this newer content, piece of memory, you can actually get these heroes for free once again. So you can start out with 3 of the most broken heroes, Pansy, Dark Castle. You can start out with these people. That is massive. Now I cannot remember if the requirements of Pansy actually led it to be that you need some hero levels, but I know that Dark Castle, Fallen Fray, they are free to get. I like this a lot. Another thing that they will add once again is the Orville Beach, aka the Ophelia event. Now I took a little bit of digging, but we got the event right here. Previously in August, they already showed this one. Now will the rewards be the same? I don't know, but we can make a educated guess. So we got ourselves the story dungeons, some special dungeons. And for the story dungeons, you get starter stage tickets, and you can then give that to Ophelia. And with those, you can get a few items in here. One of the things that I find interesting is depending on fantasy, because currently it's all about Eclipse, at least for me. So this is one of the most broken or easier artifacts to get yourself 50% attack on all of your characters. So if you don't have this artifact yet, especially for newer players on Eclipse, this one is something to look at if you don't use the Lulu's necklace, because that one is probably the most broken one. Outside of that, if you get 2 TP5 points, that is always welcome in my part. For newer players, old players, you never have enough TP5s. But it is still a question if we're still rolling the same rewards as we did last year. Now skipping over the hero balance just for a second to look at the rest, the Trial of the God King will be lowered in difficulty. What? It's not hard. I know for newer players it might be, but we're coming up at a point where tanks become pretty obsolete. We had a huge guild rant, which I even found out that people on Guild Conquest 3 are not even running tanks anymore. And I'm like, what? We gotta buff these dudes. I feel like my Loma could use some love, and practically any other tank, because if the tanks become better in Eclipse, that would be fire. The Shadow of Engina stage 3 and 7 become easier, which basically means getting yourself into the first Shockmet part as a beginner player. It will become easier to get there, which also means more resources for newer players. That's pretty fun. Oh, guess what? Shockmet becomes easier as well. On stage 1, it will still be bus ass if you go up gradually. Another thing that they will change is wave 6 to 10 and 26 to 30 when it comes to sustained damage. Now I find those stages to be one of the hardest ones, because there's worms over there, there's some dots over there that make absolutely no sense, that will hit your backline, and especially for new players this will be a big bottleneck. If they make that easier, honestly, getting more items would be easier on my part, because my Ricardo dies there, and a lot of other characters too. Wave 20, Catapolyps, aka the Cucaracha, aka the Cockroach. I'm not sure what they're gonna do to it. Let's hope they make it easier. I hope they even nerf it a little bit so that wave 40 becomes easier and every other 5 waves after that, because currently when you're running something that doesn't do much damage, and it goes into the 33% phase. He does the auto attacks, and it will even hit mid-range characters. Now that is absolutely broken. I hope they change that part, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do to it, but that is interesting. For Guild War, the debuff that is applied to AI heroes will be increased, making it easy to win against AI decks if the AI... Okay, so basically, if you find yourself a guild that doesn't want to ring Guild War, you can stomp them even harder. But now we're coming up at the most interesting part, the balance patch. We got ourselves Gao, Celine, Aisha, Floss, Arch, again, Mariana, Urzi, Lucius, Lorraine, Nyla, Keck, Barry. So we got a lot of things, and they already say like, oh, Lorraine, Nyla, and Keck, Barry will be they will have their performance adjusted. I'm not sure if it is a nerf, but we're about to find out. And Otherworldly Radiance, aka Radiance Ball, may not be a thing anymore. Interesting. Now I think there are some major changes that I find super interesting for Gao. However, there's one that I find a slight nerf in comparison, because normally S1 has attack speed reduction effect, which is used for dragons and early game players, but it now has changed to defense penetration reduction effect. So I'm assuming this will do more damage. As for skill 2, lowering the cooldown by 3 seconds seems pretty huge, and there is a P defense boost that will be added. So there's both an attack and a P defense boost, and it is a self cleanse, so that on itself is pretty broken. I like that. As for Vortex, now this is some of the things that I find super interesting. So the mana cost from 4 reduced to 3. Interesting. Effect range will be slightly increased. Now you pull people in with that one. Does that mean in PvP I can rotate and make one big happy family? Possibly, I don't know. Gao will now be able to draw in enemies if he ends up behind the enemy backline. He even gets there? Okay. Gao will move further forward using the skill, so he will be inside everybody's culo. That's what I'm guessing. Maximum number of stacks will be reduced, but the attack boost will be increased by 100, so that means more power, right? Interesting. And it's easier to get to the stacks. Even more interesting. CC resist boost will be, so he will be CC resistance on a quite large scale. Damage boost against non-hero enemies will be increased by 1.5. Now that seems pretty solid. And more non-hero damage to enemies will be upgraded as well, even though the stacks are being lowered by an X amount. So in all fairness, it doesn't matter how you look at it. It seems pretty broken, outside of the fact that his unique treasure, UT4, changed the enraged tax instead of 40, make it to 30, because otherwise it would probably be too broken. I'm not quite sure about that. Now as for something that I love, guys, Celine. Now I've read a little bit about this, I theory crafted about this. There's all sorts of gimmick that could possibly, potentially make her a PvP character. Now you guys know that whenever there's thing to test out, I will be doing that on stream, so don't worry, I will be showing you guys A220 Celine on some PvP bonanza. But for the changes, the S1 Dark, it now has a 50% chance to inflict stun for 1 second. So when it comes to interruptions, so if you see a cast, the skill itself isn't super fast, but you can still interrupt people with it with a high percent chance, because there's 12 arrows there. Shot randomly though, but the damage on itself is still pretty good as well, so that is interesting. The rush skill, which is normally 1 mana, gets reduced to 0. Now what that basically means is you can start up with rush arrows. That also means that the S4 will be started up pretty fast, which is decent on PvP. And you got a lot of extra attack arrows that might actually hurt the frontward tanker, or you can then open up faster with the S1, which does a lot of damage. Moonlight Flash. Oh, on the light perk. Guess what? You could go for the dark perk and ignore defense, right? But if you can pop the S3 faster, that is 1 CC. And there's another change to this which might make it even more interesting, is the hero's position will be changed from the middle to the back. Normally you have 4 people fighting. You have 1 front, 1 back, and then 2 in the middle. Now normally she's in the middle. That also means that whenever you S3, the arrow goes diagonally, missing half of the characters that you potentially want to hit. Now the width on the arrow is super low, But my question will be, would it be able to hit more than just the front and absolute backline? That is super interesting. But there's something that makes it even more broken. The attack range will be increased by 25%. Now this has various features, because that means obviously if you go further into the backline, you need that space to be auto attacking. But if you look at Eclipse, you have that few seconds that you have to walk. That becomes less. That means you can output more damage. That on itself is a buff, but there's more guys. And that is probably the one thing that makes her even more broken. At the beginning of each battle, increases attack. We don't know about how much, but if it is a stationary thing, that also means that Celine will be viable for early game players, so you don't then have to put in the maximum investment. I'd rather have this to be like a scaling percentage, but I'm assuming it will not be. It says this effect stacks up to 100 times. Upon reaching 100 stacks, increases damage dealing to bosses. This effect is removable. Now, on Eclipse, there's no dispel, so you don't really have to worry about it. And you cannot be doing this in Shockmeth, for instance, because that only has 5 waves. But the question will be, how much is the increase to bosses? Because here's something that I want to show you guys. So when we're currently looking at Celine, and if you look at the UT4, that says that on the amount of stacks you get 5% of non-hero damage. That is not just bossing damage, that is non-hero damage. Now on the T4 Lite, you already get 5 stacks, which means 25%. Now if you don't take this perk and go for the newer dark version, you will be missing out on 10% of bossing damage. Now does that really matter? There's a huge question to this. Because with the stacks comes more. With the Moonlight Arrow, on every single stack you can get 100 crit rate. That is normally then 500 crit rate, which is good. That also makes it so that I can pop the T5 Dark, because T5 Dark will reduce the crit chance by an X amount. Now the problem comes with this, the fact that we're not going for these 5 stacks anymore. And I am on 700 crit rate. I get at least 150 from my priest. And that also means that I either have to get 1 or 2 crit lines extra to find myself with a 100% crit rate if I go for the newer perk. That also means that I have to give up onto concentration and then go for the opportune strike. Now, whether that will be good or not, I am not quite sure. Because do I really want to give up the lines to get something extra? Like I said, I'm not quite sure, but this is easy to change. But at the end of the day, we have to see what these scalings are. If this is 50% bossing damage, always worth it. All I gotta do is change up some gear. If this is even 20%, it would potentially be better. But like I said, we'll have to check it out and see how much it will actually do. Once again, newer patch will hit. I will be doing Eclipse with all my teams to check out how far I can go. Another thing that supposedly has been buffed is Aisha, the laser beam lady. And to me, it seems like a lot of it has changed. Her unique weapon, for instance. Normally on her unique weapon, currently you get a percentage chance to do extra attack damage. And with the newer changes, it says increases own crit damage by 25% and defense penetration by 250 on a 5-star. And upon dealing damage to an enemy 500 times, which is a lot, all the effects are increased by 2. Now, that sounds like a PvP nerf, but a PvE buff. But we're not done yet. We have a S2 light perk that now, with extra mana cost, will make her CC immune with the laser beam. Now, on the EU server, there's a dude who's already running CC resist. He said, I'm keeping it the way that it is, because this way I will probably be doing more damage. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was again. The range of the boosted rate will be increased. The skill will no longer prioritize the nearby enemy, so it makes her susceptible to divers even more. And by changing the hero position from the middle to the back as well, it will be a linear thing through the whole team. Will it be hitting then the 2 outside characters? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. We'll have to check that out. I'm quite curious. But it also means that she might become more viable in, let's say, World Boss 3. We all know that Pansy is the queen of that currently, but we don't know what this change will be doing to it, because if you guys haven't seen it yet, defense penetration is broken. The fact that you're getting 500 by just hitting these things, interesting. So could this be a good thing? Maybe. Now one of the next changes, I asked Lolly Hunter, one of the only Fluss mains in the EU server, yo, are you liking these changes? Because Fluss is getting a major buff. Like, he's gonna become the new Nyla of PvP. Like, he's gonna become so massively broken, it is absurd. So basically, starting out, Flesh Step moves to the enemy with the highest attack, dispels positive attacks. Okay, that is normally on the S2 Dark. Inflicts silence, leaves a mark. Afterward, all priorities, blah 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 blah. And when a character dies, the skill resets the skill cooldown. What? And it recovers mana. We're not sure how much, but if that is 1 or 2 orbs, you can then kill something and jump to the next. Kill, jump to the next. Now that is a very nasty feature. I may even think about making this dude because I needed a good diver. I'm still working on my Cecilia. However, Fluss has soul weapon as godlike. And the reason why I never made Nyla, because she looks trash. But we're not done yet. There's more, and I'll be saying that for a few times. All magic defenses increase it, added effect. So it's just already there. Okay, upon taking magical damage, deals physical damage to the attacker. So we have a counter. So if you run against heavy magic damage teams, guess what? People will be getting hurt. A lot. Reduces attack wet and dodges all magical damage for a set duration. This is sounding like Galati's kit. A lot. Now just to check the usual S4, every 10 seconds upon taking magical damage, physical damage to the whatever, and dodges magical attack for 3 seconds. So in contrast, this thing broken. Ew. And there's more coming to this because the S4 Dark, the old one, has 30% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. Now it has a proc rate, used to have a proc rate, makes absolutely no sense that it is in there. But now you get magical defense by 10% of your own attack. So that means if you got a million attack, you get a 100k magical defense. What? That is crazy, guys. I'm not sure what to tell you. Okay, Flesh Step. The jumper. Like, So basically the old one, in additional from 1 mana cost, the cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. So basically it meant that you could jump multiple times, but now you do more physical damage. Great. Okay, but we got a Dark. Makes the target unable to recover mana for 2 seconds. Hey. What is it with all this mana blocking bonanza? Give Chase something like this, please. Okay, if there are any wizards in the enemy, changes the target to the wizard. So if you then have, let's say, a Scarlet, big one, and you have Kybera, for instance, and you want to jump to their Aisha on the newest patch because she is going to be broken. No, it's not actually true. Let's say Lorraine instead. But the Scarlet has more attack. With Kybera, you jump then to the Scarlet. Fluss says, no. I jump to that Lorraine and I'm gonna hurt and hit her very, very hard. That is crazy. But wait a minute, there is more. So on the S4 Light, upon taking magical damage, recovers mana by 1,000. Okay, so you need 2 for a jump. You get 1. Increases attack by 20% for 10 seconds, and it only activates 1 every 10 seconds. So it's still a 100% uptime. Don't get me wrong. It can probably still get dispelled. Interesting. But the T5 Dark increases damage of normal attacks by 35%. He's an auto attack dude for all I know. And upon attacking wizards with normal attacks, deals extra physical damage equal to 100% of attack? With just a normal attack? Okay, so let's just check my cane for a second. Like, outside of the normal scaling, guys, I got 16 million HP. That will be doubled in PvP. Okay, so we got 33 million HP on my cane just sitting there. Now, just on a normal attack, you get, let's say you have a million attack, and you do 100% of this. That means 1 million attack per auto attack. Now, just to show you guys an indication on how fast this dude auto attacks, these are all extra hits, bruh. Like, he has multiple hits every single skill. So it's not 1 million damage every second. I'm assuming it's 5 million damage every second on just plain auto attack, and that's not doing skills. They're just jumping to somebody's culo. So I'm assuming that the moment I see a 220 flush, I'm gonna get vaporized. And then there's a reset, you can go again. But it's only against Wizard. Super excited for this one, except for facing it, because I may not like it all that much. Luckily, the only mage that I really have is my Kayn. All I know is that Lilia, even though I thought of building her, she will be my PvE factor for Trial of Flow. Outside of that, I will probably never use her. Sick. Now, as for the Arch changes, I don't know much about Arch. He used to be absolutely broken. Like way back in the day, he got nerfed at some point. He received a few buffs over time, but I still never seen people use it to a high success. Will this change it? I'm not quite sure. There are some things that they did change. So basically his core kit is landing a sigil and then having extra effects to it. What they basically say is we're going to change this up where we don't need the sigil anymore. Okay, now first off, he will be getting a damage boost by 30% on the skill 1. Okay, interesting. The non-hero damage boost will be removed. Okay, so PvE will be less. But PvP applied against the hero enemies, so he will do a lot more damage on just the S1. That is interesting. Silence will now be applied if there's no judgment sigil. Like I said, no sigil needed for the extra effect. But the S1 recovers mana upon a critical hit. Now I'm not sure, it has 3 arrows, and could it be a 1.5k increase? Or not, I'm not quite sure. But reduces mana by 500 upon hit. It's 3 arrows, 3 different enemies. So yeah, it's a nice amount of reduction. It's becoming the general tendency of everything, where mana reduction is all. Heal rate reduction, this is a 50% healing rate reduction, guys. So in terms of wall teams or running against wall teams, should be viable. CC immunity for the skill, I'm not that much of a fan of it, because you can make several characters that can just give you that space. Now since it costs 4, making it a 3 and an instant silence, that seems pretty good. And increases the duration of the shield effect by 5 seconds and the shield by 30%. Okay, so he will be longer immune. He doesn't die all that much, so he will be around longer. You can still dispel it, however. Okay, that's super interesting, but one of the things that makes his S2 more interesting as well, he is also being moved to the back, so no diagonal hits, no, straight to the face. Which basically means this, that this skill most likely will hit multiple targets, or at least the backline targets. It seems that the width isn't that big, however, we might get surprised. Mediana, now Mediana needed to have a buff. Reason for that, she is outshined by just about everything. And I'm not sure if this is going to change that single fact. But basically what they say, if there are 2 or more allies, Mediana will not be targeted as the ally with the highest attack. Because you can stack up attack on Mediana and then give a buff to somebody else. But if she is the highest attacker, she'll be getting that buff. Not useful. So they changed that up. That is interesting. And the S3 Lite will now give a buff to 1 more character. Okay. So basically, what I'm just guessing, if you run a Fallen Fray, if you run a main damage dealer, you get a bigger shield, and you get more attack, which then triggers the T5 Dark, which then gives more attack away. What is the S4? I'm not quite sure. Either way, more attack upon more attack upon more attack. Crazy. Okay, and the poison increases own damage dealt to enemies by 20% and allows self to be targeted as the ally with the highest attack. Now, I'm not quite sure where this is useful. It might be that in the newer patches, you want to have certain people to attack you instead. But this also means that you will be targeted by some BS. Interesting. This might be useful on the upcoming patches. Now, one thing that seems interesting, an effect that increases the P damage the enemy is affected with the poison will be added like 25%. Okay, now I cannot tell you guys if this is a real Mediana buff, because normally the S3 Lite has a 40% attack boost, and that, guys, is major. Like absolutely ridiculous. And getting 1 more target there, I'm not sure if that is gonna fix what she needs. Honestly, the more that I read this, guys, this seems more of a nerf than anything else. I'm not liking this from Mediana, honestly, because you're losing out on 40% attack. 40% attack on S3 is huge, and she is still outclassed by Fallen Frey, no matter how you look at it. So in all fairness, would this then return Mediana to be really meta? I highly doubt it. As for Urzi, she received a singular change. I don't think it will be helping all that much, except for one thing, and that is using her in Shockman. The Sweet Blood S1 skill, the stacks will become irremovable. That means that the extra damage that you're getting from S1 can then be used in Shockman, making sure that the stages itself becomes easier. So basically, her unique weapon isn't dispellable anymore. You get more attack, you get more attack speed. So in all fairness, it seems good, but only for Shockman so far. Maybe on the newer patches on chapter 10, it will become super viable, but like I said, I'm not quite sure. Now Lucius needs a buff. Even on top of this is still not good. So let's read it out. S1, the heal rate will be increased by 20%. Yay, a bigger, stronger heal. A220 Lucius was healing people the full already anyway. It doesn't sound like he's gonna need it. The Zone of Faith, the ratio will be increased from 4 seconds to 6. Now just to give you guys a slight idea what the healing is looking like. You press the S2 once, the heal is ticking, and this is where the healing basically stops. So it means that instead of this, I would get a 6 million HP heal. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but a 50% increase in forms of duration seems pretty good. But you also get an extra attack. You get dispels from negative effects on all your allies, which means, well, you don't get stunned and everything. And it stuns enemies for several seconds as well. So that means that in terms of protection, it seems pretty good. If you then go by the UT2, you will also be draining mana for a longer time. So that seems interesting. The S3 skill cooldown will be reduced from 30 to 25 seconds. So basically it has a 15-second uptime. So there's still a 10-second downtime. With his unique treasure 3, if you get that up to like a 5-star, that is still 7.5 seconds lower. So you would still be with a downtime of 2.5 seconds if you don't pick the Pocket Watch artifact. So you can make this 100% uptime, guys. So you can make him absolute CC immune if you do have the right items. Would that then make it super good? I am not quite sure. I want to try it out, but like I said, I don't know. S1 will now heal all allies instead of 4. I didn't even know that was a thing. The Blessing of Light Benedicia, aka his unique weapon, the damage boost against non-hero enemies will be scaled up with another 5%. It used to be 15 on max, but now it's 20. That seems to be like a whole lot, but still, it doesn't make me super excited. For one, the unique weapon is still dispellable, so the attack speed increase that you get, great and all, will be dispelled in Shockman. All of the damage boost against non-hero enemies, dispelled in Shockman. That means that it is still not good enough. This needs to be an undispellable unique weapon. If you want to use this dude for PvP or any sort, you need this undispellable. But guess what? They don't do that because that will probably already make him too broken. Okay, but for a soul weapon, seems a little interesting, at least if you get him to A1, is you get 35% attack increase for the duration of this thing. And the activation times on A0 will be reduced from 6 to 4, which used to be on the A1. So in all fairness, yes, is it better? Yes, obviously. Will he then be meta? Hell no. Like, there's so much that needs to be changed for him to be absolutely good. But I'm quite curious to try him out in one of my teams in Eclipse, so I'll be showing you guys that as well. Now we come up to, I'm so grateful for this, thank you so much, Lorraine nerf. This needed to be done. So effect range will be reduced by 25%. That seems huge. What I'm assuming is that backliners will not get hit anymore. Now that is amazing, because having a dispel, a damage thing on everything, Even your backliners, it is so nasty. And if you build a damage Lorraine S4, if Lorraine dies, the poison effect will disappear. I haven't seen it myself because I permaban her, but assume that you're running a wall team and you kill that Lorraine and there's some poison ticks and it kills your whole team anyway. Now that would make me mad as hell. It sounds like my chase, but that is a built-in gimmick that cannot kill your whole team unless you are near dead. But okay, it doesn't stop there, guys. Increases mana cost by 1 and dispels positive effects within range. Used to be 3, will become 4. So then as a Lorraine player, you really have to think, do I go for the S1 on a mana drain and then allow for the S3 to lock people down, or do I go straight for the S3 that can still get dispelled, this, that, and the third? So it will make so that Lorraine is a lot slower, or you make her super fast and then she loses out on damage. So I find this good. I'm still processing whether this will be enough because she is broken as it is. But what I like the most is this doesn't necessarily hurt her PvE side. So that still means that on Eclipse she's probably the most broken character. On Flow, probably lowest investment broken character. So I like this. I really like this change. As for the chicken wings, aka Nyla, aka KFC, she finally gets another nerf because the previous nerf was next to nothing. So Fierce Wind, aka her jump, mana cost will be increased from 2 to 3. So no more insta jumps and no more of that BS. That is nice. And the duration of the S2 will be increased from 15 to 20 seconds, which means a 100% uptime. I heard somebody say that's actually pretty decent. And the Tornado Strike defense penetration boost will be reduced from 300 to 1500. So please let it not be able to one-shot my backliner chases or whatever. I've seen an A220 Nyla just beat up 40 million HP of my chase with one singular skill. At that point, I was like I was ready to throw things around in my room. Ooh. All right, as for the Tornado Strike, that has a succession chance, and that will be reduced from 15% to 10. It will not get much defense penetration anymore, and the stun duration will be reduced from 2 seconds to 1. So yes, we are not getting locked down by some BS. And the funny part is, and also we will reduce the Tornado Strike effect so that the hit enemies can actually fight back. Yes, I hate this lady with a passion because she looks trash. Everybody knows. Okay, as for the Cabrera nerf, I'm not sure how much of a nerf this is, but what I feel at which came out of the community is Cabrera is one of those characters that needs a huge investment to be good, right? Now, it doesn't seem fair, and I'll come to this point in a second, that if you put up all of your resources into Cabrera and you cannot be doing, let's say, the Trial of Sky anymore, because here's what's happening. Soul Weapon activation cooldown will be increased from 19 seconds to 24. Now, in terms of reduction, there's still 2 seconds reduction and there's still 4 seconds reduction when you come to A2. So the activation chance is still 18%, guys. It makes it so that his damage will be reduced by a long shot. I actually like that because it was pretty broken. I've seen double soul weapons come out in a fight like that, and I was like, well, now it's time to die, because that is where most of his damage is coming from. But yeah, it will harm him in terms for people that want to use him for the Trial of Sky. However, he's not made for PvE, which then also comes to my next point. Why would you nerf the PvP capacity of a hero to a certain extent where he becomes way less? There's another thing. Upon selecting the Dark Slayer Demonic Sword S2, this skill mana cost will be increased from 0 to 1. So basically what it means, if you go for that S3 sword, it will become harder to then jump to the backline because it costs more mana, which then also means that in terms of attack, you go a little bit lower, get more mana per attack, and then you might do the same jumping that you always did, but the damage will be lower instead. I like that. But the thing that I don't like is the amount of investment that is required for Cabrera to actually be good, and be good only in PvP. Do not like that at all. But yeah, it's what we're running with. Okay, As for the radiance changes, instead of 5 seconds duration of this thing, it will become 4 seconds. Yay! So I can then cast my dispels faster and they will not mess me up. I like that. And the reactivation interval, instead of 10 seconds, it will become 15. So there's a downtime of 10 seconds. That window might be everything that I need to mess people up. I like this change a lot because the thing was massively broken. Everybody and their mother was running Radiance Bow and it could be popping every single other time. I was so mad as hell. That also means that the usability of my Nikki becomes higher. Liking this change. Let me know what you guys think. I've rambled on about this game for a long time. And if you guys find this video helpful, entertaining, whatever, like, sub. But this is Twebby. Peace.